I'm Bob Spinozzi, and welcome to Small Town. Well, the Pats did it again. Super Bowl win number 5 in Super Bowl 51. Now, today we're going to have some fun and look back at the history of the American Football League, the old AFL, and also trace the history of the Boston, New England Patriots. So let's begin November 16th, 1959, and that's when Boston businessman Billy Sullivan was awarded the 8th and final franchise of the new Pro Football League, the AFL. In addition to the Patriots, the other original teams were the Buffalo Bills, New York Titans, Houston Oilers, the Dallas Texans, Denver Broncos, and the San Diego Chargers. Now, for the most part, the new teams widened the national exposure to pro football by serving markets that were absent from the NFL. Exceptions were the Titans shared New York with the Giants, and the Texans joined the expansion Cowboys in Dallas. Billy Sullivan was successful in various businesses, but he did not have deep pockets like most of the other new owners. He purchased the franchise for $25,000. He scraped together $8,300 of his own and then borrowed the rest. Now, this leveraging and scrounging, if you will, is how the team started and the way it breathed for years. Kind of set the tone for the first part of the Patriots' existence. I have with me Jack Holmer, former selectman and chairman of our 2014 Tercentennial Committee, and he will assist me as we look back into the Patriots' journey to the top of the National Football League mountain. Jack, thank you so much for being with me.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be with you. Again. Again and again, yes.
You knew Billy Sullivan personally back in the 60s.
Yes, I did.
We're going to put a picture up here of you and Billy taken in '88, I think. I don't want people thinking that you had white hair 57 years ago. So,
I had, well, never mind. We won't go there, Bob. We won't go there. I knew Bill Sullivan. It's a tie back to the Boston Braves thing that we did. He was the publicity director for the Boston Braves back when I went with the Braves, basically in '47, the year before they won the pennant in '48. And part of his job was, that was, as you know, the start of the Jimmy Fund, too. And Billy Sullivan was very instrumental in that. And I worked with him. We did a couple of television shows and everything else. But he was just a fine gentleman and a hard worker, a real hard worker at, keeping up with the Braves. Because the Braves were second best. You know, the Red Sox were the team. So, Billy Sullivan had a tough job, but that's how I got to know him. And then after the Braves left the town, I didn't see him at the Braves Field, naturally, but I did run into him a couple of times at various reunions and things that we had, and that's one of the pictures that you see.
Sure, and he was always in the area anyway. He was in the Boston area.
Right, well, he came from Lowell, Mass. He was born and brought up in Lowell, Mass, and went to BC. He graduated from BC and basically became a sports writer for the Globe in the beginning. And then just prior to the time I went with the Braves, he came over to the Braves. So he was there when I got there.
And ironically, you when you were both with the Braves, you played it. Well, it was renamed Nickerson Field after Boston University bought it. Right. But that's where the Patriots started playing their games.
That's right.
They played their first games in 1960, and they played at Nickerson Field through 1962.
That's right.
And there was one particular game in 1961, near the end of the year, they were playing, I believe it was Dallas, and Patriots were leading 28-21. Dallas was moving the ball. I think it was on the Patriots' 3-yard line. Last play of the game. Tell us what happened.
Well, a fan came out of the stands.
Now, back then there was no security.
That's right. Security was
You
zero.
had fans on the sidelines. You had fans ringing the end zone.
I've seen a picture of it. I did not see it live, but I've seen a picture of it, and they were right. They were right there. They were within 3 feet of the sideline, and just completely surrounding the sidelines. And this guy comes out at the end of the end zone, and It's hard to see in the replays,
Right.
But it appears that he tipped the ball.
The ball. In fact, the Pats, on looking at film on Monday morning, they saw someone in a trench coat going across.
Unbelievable. But when you think of security today, you look back at something like that.
Yeah, and we're talking about the crowd back then too, Jack. The first year at Nickerson Field, the Pats averaged about 16,000. Now, notice I'm not saying paying customers.
Yes.
A lot of freebies from the supermarkets, all those car dealerships.
Oh, yes.
Up and down Com Ave, going into Brighton.
Yeah.
They were giving them away.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But those were fun days. The old AFL started the two-point conversion.
Mm-hmm.
They started putting names on the back of jerseys. There was just a lot of offense, a lot of fun things going on.
That's right.
Back then.
That's right.
So the Pats then moved from 1963 to 1968 to Fenway Park.
That's right. Yep.
And then 1969 they played at Boston College. 1970
Harvard
Stadium.
Harvard Stadium.
This whole time they never did have a permanent practice scrimmage facility either.
Part of the, you don't have deep pockets.
There were nomads.
You didn't have deep pockets. You couldn't do things. You had to patch together. But that's what they did, and they survived. They survived.
Yeah, and they were okay in the '60s, and they did make the championship game. I believe it was 1963. They played
63.
San Diego.
What was it? 58 to 10 or something like 51 to 10 or something like that. Yeah.
So, and the players. Let's talk about the players for a little bit. Let's go back to the league for a moment and talk about the AFL players on those early year rosters. Many of them were simply players who had been cut by NFL teams or players that the NFL had ignored. Some of them became stars. Lionel Taylor, George Blanda, Lance Allworth, Buck Buchanan, Jack Kemp, who later went on a political career, Len Dawson, and our own Gino Cappelletti. And then there was the draft. Like the NFL, the new league had a college draft. Now, unfortunately, both leagues competed for some of the same players, and this bidding war only helped the wealthier teams. A couple of examples. 1960, Houston signed Louisiana State Heisman Trophy winner running back Billy Cannon to a $100,000 contract. And in 1964, New York Jets, formerly the Titans, signed Alabama quarterback Joe Namath to a 3-year, $400,000 contract. Absolutely crazy money for a rookie. Another dilemma for teams: how high do you draft a blue chip prospect if you're not sure you're going to sign him? And here's an example. 1965, Kansas City Chiefs, formerly the Dallas Texans, took All-America running back Gale Sayers from University of Kansas as their number 1 draft choice, and then they lost him to the Chicago Bears of the NFL. Conversely, in 1966, Chiefs took Southern Cal star running back Mike Garrett in the 20th round because they didn't think they had a chance. Garrett went on to have an absolutely fantastic pro career. Now, I want to mention a very important part of the early AFL rosters. Teams in the league opened the door for players from black colleges. NFL didn't venture much beyond the major conferences for their recruiting. The AFL, on the other hand, scouted the small schools as well as the larger ones, and focused a lot of attention on black colleges. And some of the early black players for the Pats: Houston Antwine, Southern Illinois; Larry Guerin, Western Illinois; Jim Hunt, Prairie View A&M. Where the heck is that? Leroy Moore, Fort Valley State. And they also had quite a few from Boston College and Holy Cross. I've jotted a couple of names down here. Jim Coleclaw. Art Graham was fantastic at Boston College. Larry Eisenhower. Ross O'Hanley went to BC. And, looking back also, stocking the original team, the Pats were hurt a little bit because they were awarded the last franchise. And a lot of the other teams had already lined up some of the other
Right.
NFL, I'm not going to call them rejects, but players who didn't make NFL rosters.
Yeah.
So, anyway, you remember some of those games, don't you? Did you go to any of the games?
Oh, yes, yeah. No, I didn't go to that many. I was more of a baseball person than a football person back then. But it was just interesting to see this whole thing evolve.
Yeah.
And how the AFL, then they got together with the NFL. And I guess you
Yeah, I want to get that in a second.
Yeah,
but I want to mention one more thing. The Patriots play their home games on Friday nights because this was Giant country, New York Giant country. People were still big New York Giants fans. So the Pats had to play Friday nights on their home games so as not to conflict with the Sunday Giants games, which were almost all televised.
The interesting part about that was the Giants moved up to play in the Yale Bowl for 2 years.
73 in there, in
that area. Yeah, they came up, so that that enhanced the Giants' move. Up this way.
I went to a game there.
Oh, is that right?
I did go,
Never been to a game.
Yeah, I did go there.
No.
But before I interrupted you just now, June '66, I think, is when the merger took place.
Right.
The AFL and the NFL are merging now, and also as part of that, the draft now became a common draft, so there's no more competition.
No more bidding. It's much better for football, if you will. And the teams.
Yeah. So we're moving along here. They're okay in the 60s, and now we come up to 1970. We played in 1969 at BC Stadium. 1970, we're at Harvard Stadium.
Right.
What happened there?
Well, they had two players, and I can't remember their names, but they couldn't sign them at the
One of them was a
last
running
minute.
back named Charles.
Okay, you maybe. I don't remember that, but I remember they had two players that they just couldn't sign, and so a few days before this, they had cut Bob Gladio,
Correct.
who came from Notre Dame.
He was from Notre Dame.
He was from Notre Dame, and they had cut him, and but they figured he probably might be in the stands. When they couldn't sign these two players, they needed somebody. So they called him out of the stands.
Public address, this is the public address announcer.
Go ahead.
You, everybody.
Yeah.
Well, Bob Gladio, please report to the Patriots clubhouse.
That's right. They brought him out of the club, suited him up, and put him on the kickoff, defensive kickoff team. Who makes the tackle? Bob Gladio makes the tackle on the opening kickoff. Unbelievable. I mean, when you watch football today, the pro football, to have something like that happen is just it's hard to envision a scenario like that happening in pro football.
Yeah, true story.
Yeah.
So while we're talking about Harvard Stadium, as part of the AFL-NFL merger, all teams were required to play in a stadium with a capacity of at least 50,000, and in Boston, Harvard Stadium was the only possibility when they factored in the temporary seats. But unfortunately, the university refused to lease to the Patriots on any kind of a long-term basis. So the team looked at sites in South Boston, Dorchester, East Boston, and sites offered to the Pats outside of the city. But getting back to Boston for a second, there was a lot of resistance, the old not in my backyard mentality. And quite frankly, there was a lack of political will by city leaders, made things impossible. So it was time to drop back 10 and punt. And they did. And the football traveled 20 miles south down Route 1 to Foxborough and their new home. This is incredible. In 1970, it's beyond good fortune. E.M. Lowe, owner of the movie house chain, also owned Bay State Raceway in Foxborough. Now, Lowe was concerned that the Pats might leave New England, so he gave the team 15 acres of land adjacent to the raceway to build a stadium. 327 days, $6.7 million later, team opened its 1971 season in the new 61,000-seat Schaefer Stadium. Team also got a new name. They are now the New England Patriots. Now, why name Schaefer Stadium? Purely economics. Schaefer Beer Company paid 25% of the $6.7 million for the naming rights to this sparkling new venue. And financing for the balance was arranged by the sale of 400,000 shares of common stock. Now, right now, things are smoking hot. And if you were playing cards, this would be a royal flush. Now, boy, did I just say the wrong word. At the end of August, the Pats played an exhibition game with the Giants before the home opener. And the toilets in the stadium backed up and overflowed. The water pressure hadn't been adequately tested. You do remember that?
Yes, I remember. I was not there. I did not contribute. but just, amazing in today's scenario of what goes on behind the scenes and the little unexpected upsets.
Yeah, and I remember reading an article in the Globe as a follow-up to that, where the town, obviously they weren't going to let this thing happen again, and the town made them perform a check where they had people, different bathrooms in different parts of the stadium. Of course, it's 1971 now, so they're probably communicating amongst themselves with a walkie-talkie.
Yeah.
But they were all directed to flush the toilet at the same instant to make sure it didn't overflow.
Yeah.
But
all adds to the history. It all adds to the history.
now, that last year in Harvard Stadium, before they went down to Schaefer Stadium, the Patriots finished 2-12. And because of that, they got the first round draft choice.
Right.
Jim Plunkett.
Right.
Center stage.
Right.
You remember.
I remember that, yeah. I remember Jim Plunkett. Great ball player. Yeah, I mean, the first one really to make it.
Yeah, he came out of Stanford University.
Yeah.
Interesting story, too, behind. His parents are both blind.
I did not know
Yeah,
that. Yeah, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, he played at Stanford University, and he was the number one draft choice. Archie Manning was another great quarterback. He was the second draft choice. But anyway, digressing here. The Pats in '71 finished 6-8, which was respectable.
Yeah, getting there. Getting there, yes.
So, and then, they didn't really do much. But Plunkett becomes central as we move on to '76, because the Patriots were going to be trading him. And they found a trading partner in the San Francisco 49ers. Mm-hmm. So in 1976, the Patriots traded Jim Plunkett to San Francisco. They got 2 number 1 draft choices from San Francisco. And they were pretty high, too. I think they were a 12 and a 21. They got San Francisco's second round choice, and they got San Francisco's number 1 pick in '77. We're sorry to see Plunkett go, but with those first round draft choices, the Patriots drafted Mike Hayes, Pete Brock, Tim Fox, and they all turned out to be really
stars.
Really good ball players.
Excellent ball players. Yeah.
So with these 3 ball players and a lot of other good ball players, they did make the playoffs in 1976. 1978, they won their division. And, they had some good ball players back then. Steve Grogan was quarterback. You remember him.
Yep.
Fox, the tight end. What was his first name? Anyway, John Hanna, the All-American.
Lineman.
Yeah. So that's going to take us up to 1980 when we have another blooper that I'm going to let you bring up.
What blooper was that? What are you're making reference to?
Yeah, some guy that was on a work release program.
Work release program. Yeah, 1980. It was a game against Miami.
Yeah.
Game against Miami in Foxborough, and it was snowing, and it was really snowing hard, and it got down to crunch time, and
0-0 is the score.
Yeah, and the Patriots had a chance to kick a field goal. So they called a timeout, as I recall. And during that timeout, this guy who was on work release from a local prison,
Norfolk,
but was sitting on a snowblower, and that was his job to clean off the lines and everything else. Starts the thing up and heads right out into the field. Sweeps off, does a great job sweeping off right where he
Just
had to
happened to be on the 33-yard line.
Where he had to kick from, kicked the field goal, and the Patriots won the game.
3-0.
Yep.
3-0.
Unbelievable. Again, who would have thunk it?
Don Shula was the coach for Miami.
Yeah.
Of course, went to the office and complained to Commissioner Pete Rozelle. Rozelle's comment was, really, I've never changed the outcome of a game before.
And I'm not starting now.
No.
I'm not starting now.
So
I do remember seeing that. Now, I think I saw that. I'm probably watching television. I think.
I remember.
I know I've seen pictures afterwards, so I may be mixing up seeing it live on television against the pictures. But I mean, it was again another amazing little tidbit that's fun to reminisce about.
So not a heck of a lot happened. We did win we got to the Super Bowl.
Right.
In 86. January 86.
Yeah, 86.
And then they were in the playoffs again in 87. And then they didn't make the playoffs again for 8 years.
That's right.
After that.
That's right.
Let's talk about some more instability creeping in here now. I'm going to let you, Victor, first of all, the Sullivans, okay, so we're into the 80s now, and they're getting into some financial difficulty.
They've got all sorts of problems. They're getting the deep, not having deep pockets to start with would hurt them. But then they get into other things. And Billy Sullivan had two sons, Patrick and Chuck, and he gave them both big positions in the Patriots. But they also, and I don't want to say it was just the sons, but it may have been all three of them, got involved in wanting to do something more in the entertainment field and everything else. So they backed the Jackson 5 group.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They backed the Jackson 5 group, and that whole tour went bust. I don't really remember exactly why it went bust. I remember hearing something, but that doesn't make any sense. It went bust, and basically they lost, in that year, they lost their net worth.
Yeah. I know the league lent them a lot of money.
The league had to lend them something like $3 million
it was
or
even
something.
to make payroll.
Yeah, to make payroll,
Yeah.
exactly. Just to pay the players and all. So they had a lot of problems. So that's when they basically had to sell at that point.
So
they had to sell.
In 1988, Victor
Kayam, yeah. Schick Razor? Schick.
Yeah, I think it was Schick.
I think it was Schick Razor.
Bridgeport, Connecticut.
He was in Connecticut. I remember that. Yeah.
And they changed the name to Foxborough Stadium at that point, too.
Yes. Yeah.
So Kayam had it, I believe, for 4 years. And then 1992, James
Earthwine from St. Louis.
Correct. In fact, he wanted to move the Patriots to St. Louis.
Yeah.
Because St. Louis had just lost the Cardinals to Arizona.
Right. That's right, and that was a big hue and cry. I can remember that. The people didn't want them to go. Really didn't want them to go, and all of a sudden, along came a very, very familiar name,
Robert Kraft.
Kraft. Yep. And bailed it all out, and look what he's done.
Yeah, but he threatened to leave too, of course.
Yes.
He wanted the state to help pay for some improvements at, where are we now? Foxborough Stadium.
Foxborough at that point, yes, yeah.
And so, they didn't want to do it, initially at least.
Yeah.
And he was supposedly offered a sweetheart of a deal in Hartford, Connecticut. They were going to build a brand new stadium, paid for by the state of Connecticut, located right downtown. Gratis, it's yours. And
a lot of people say, though, that was a
bluff.
A bluff.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? Who knows?
But anyway, he got them to pay, the state to pay, I believe it was $374 billion to do infrastructure improvement.
Yeah, to the roads, the railroad, yeah, but it was an infrastructure type thing.
Correct.
That the state undertook. Yeah.
So Kraft owns the team, hires Bill Parcells, and the Patriots go on to have a fantastic 1996. In the Super Bowl in 1997, they lost to the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
And, I think it was the following year, Robert Kraft, he owns the team now, he wanted to draft Terry Glenn, a wide receiver from Ohio State. And Parcells he didn't want to draft Terry Glenn. And Glenn was drafted, at which point the relationship was broken between the two. Yeah. And Parcells moved on. In fact, Parcells, a great line of his that I have to mention, he wasn't allowed to draft his own player. So he said, if they want you to cook dinner, they ought to let you shop for the groceries.
First time I've heard that one. Very good. You've done your research. You've done your research.
So, we're moving on here, and we're coming up to the year 2000, and the Patriots are looking for another coach, and they've earmarked Bill Belichick from the Jets. Parcells is now the general manager for the Jets. Parcells demands a first-round draft choice from the Patriots in order to get Belichick. So, fine. That's just fine. Because you know what? We didn't need a first round in 2000. We didn't need a second, a third, a fourth, or fifth. Because in the sixth round, we drafted...
Who did we draft? The audience. Who did we draft? Yes, we did. Tom himself.
Yeah. So look how that worked out,
Yep. As they say sometimes in sports, I'd rather be lucky than good.
And you and I will end it on that note. Thank you for being with me.
It's always a pleasure.
We'll do it again.
You sure? Thanks.
Thanks so much. Continuing, the Patriots were 5-11 in 2000. Tom Brady appeared in one game, was 1 for 3 in passing, and third on the depth chart behind Michael Bishop and starter Drew Bledsoe. In March 2001, Bledsoe signed a 10-year, $103 million contract. He was 29 years old. Now, in the second game of the 2001 season, Bledsoe took a vicious hit from a Jet linebacker that landed him in the emergency room at Mass General. Bledsoe had sustained a life-threatening chest injury. He had extensive surgery, and that was followed by a long recovery period. Meantime, Tom Brady stepped in at quarterback and guided the team during Bledsoe's absence. Now, by the middle of November, Bledsoe was cleared to play, but Belichick stayed with Brady, and he took some heat from some of the sports writers who were very loyal to the popular Bledsoe. Brady played. The team finished the regular season with a flourish, winning their last 5 games and a trip to the playoffs. Now, you remember the Oakland game and the tuck rule? Pats won 16-13 in overtime. And then they beat the Steelers, and then, on February 3rd, 2002, they upset the heavily favored St. Louis Rams in Super Bowl 36 in New Orleans. And that opened the floodgates to success. Pats won again 2004, 2005, 2015, and 2017. Now, think about this for a moment. If you're 30 years old or younger, the only thing that you know about the Pats is winning. They've won 8 straight division titles. From 2003 to 2012, they won 126 games. And in the last 4 years, they're 12-4, 12-4, 12-4, and 14-2 in the regular season. And yes, Las Vegas has them as odds-on favorite to win Super Bowl 52 in Minneapolis. Forbes magazine in 2016 listed the most valuable teams in the NFL. Dallas Cowboys are number one with a $4.2 billion valuation. Pats are number two and valued at $3.4 billion. When Robert Kraft bought the team in 1994, he paid $172 million. But you can't put a price tag on 5 Super Bowls since 2002. And that's some nice hardware. So that's the end of our journey from the humble beginning in 1959 to the top of the NFL mountain. So thank you for watching. See you next time.